What's up guys, it's Mitch here from the DIYRecordingStudio.com, and today we're going to be having a look at how to take a cheap guitar straight off the shelf and turn it into an awesome sounding custom studio guitar for a lot cheaper than you might think. So most of you would be familiar with the Squire line of Fender guitars, which are basically their cheapest entry-level guitars, usually aimed at first-time guitarists and people shopping on a budget. And I've got one right here that I've been using for quite a while. And it's an awesome bit of gear, and I don't mind the fretwork particularly, or the machine heads, they're quite fine. But one thing in particular where they lack is in the pickups. So in the pickups here, in the neck pickup, this one seems to be okay. This, however, is pretty horrible sounding. So the goal is going to be to change both of these, and it'll be an interesting experiment. And these guitars usually in Australia go for anywhere around sort of the $350, $400 mark. I think I might have got a very good deal on this one, even cheaper than 350 bucks, which for those of you who aren't aware, music equipment in Australia is actually quite expensive due to taxes we pay and the way wholesalers tend to work. So that might sound expensive to some people, but it's actually the lowest sort of entry-level prices that we have here. But I digress. What they do with these guitars is they typically equip them with much cheaper pickups to save on the costs, among a couple of other things in the way they build these guitars, but definitely one of the cheapest components in the guitar is actually those pickups. So my idea is to get a set of much better high-quality pickups, and I'll grab those here. These right here. And what they are is a replica of a 64 series Telecaster pickup. These aren't too expensive to buy. I think I bought them for about 100 bucks for the set. They're quite an easy upgrade. So what we're going to do today is show how we take the old pickups out, put the new pickups in, and then have a listen to the comparison of how both those pickup sets sound. Now, I'm not sure how much of a difference these pickups are going to make. I think the bridge pickup will make a big difference, but we'll see. I'm just hoping to get a bit more of a professional sounding tone out of this guitar. Everyone loves a good telly. They're a great guitar to have in the studio. I'm just hoping that I get something a bit nicer and a bit warmer. And it's a cool, simple project to do as well. But that's enough from me. Let's get into it.
So first off, for this project, you're going to need a good soldering iron, an extractor fan, some small screwdrivers, some snips and some needle nose pliers, a solder sucker and some solder, and of course the pickups that we're going to be upgrading. And now the first thing you want to do with your guitar is unwind all the strings. This would have been easier for me if I had a string winder handy. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it, so I was just doing it by hand. It's a bit slower, it's not great, but you know, whatever gets the job done. And then here I'm just removing the strings from the bridge. This is not necessary if you want to keep the same set of strings on, but I was going to restring this guitar anyway, and it just gets everything out of the way so you can get to all the screws and undo everything a bit neater. And then next up, you just want to remove all the screws for the bridge plate. This is pretty easy to do. I just ended up getting a bigger screwdriver instead of using those smaller screwdrivers because they kind of weren't cutting it and some of these screws were a bit tight. So it just made it a bit easier to use a larger screwdriver for that. And then you want to do the plate where the tone pot and the pickup selector switches are. And this is kind of where all the wiring converges in the guitar. So this is an important one to have a look at. And then you just need to go around and take out all the screws that hold the scratch plate in place, and that'll help us get to the neck pickup. Now, to remove the neck pickup itself, it's actually screwed into the body of the guitar, so you'll have to undo those screws so that we can then desolder it and remove it from the guitar. And what I realized when I was taking out these pickups is that they're made in a funny construction. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but you can see these magnets down the side of the pickup poles, and those poles are usually magnets themselves. But what they do to cheap out on these pickups and construct them in a cheaper way is they just use a standard sort of metal as the pole and attach magnets to it that way. And that's why you're not getting a strong pickup sound and the quality of more expensive pickups. But we'll go over that in part 2 of this video when we do a comparison of the original pickups and the new pickups. So I'm going to start with the bridge pickup here, and basically I trace back the wires, and the yellow pickup is the wire that goes to the pickup selector, and then the black wire goes to the pot on the far left there. You can see all the black wires that are soldered to that. So the same will be true for the neck pickup. The white wire will go to the selector switch, and the black wire will go to the group of black wires soldered to that pot on the far left. So all I'm doing here to remove the wires is adding a dollop of solder to my iron, and then just going to the wire I need to remove and holding my iron on it, and then melting that solder and pulling the wire out. It's really, really simple stuff to do. And I just started with the yellow and white wires that are wired to the pickup selector switch because they were the easiest to get done first. And then I carefully traced back the correct black wires that went to the pot on the far left there. I just wanted to make sure that I was going to be unsoldering or desoldering the correct black wires because there's a few there. And then for this part, it's important to get a nice dollop of solder on your iron to try and melt these wires off because they're all joined there by a big lump of solder there. And you're going to need some fresh solder on your iron to get that melting properly to pull away the black wires that you need to desolder. And once those wires are desoldered, it's really easy to take that neck pickup out. And same for the bridge pickup, you just need to remove it from the bridge plate. And once that's done, it's time to install the new pickups. And inside the box of the pickups, you'll have obviously the neck and bridge pickups there. And you can see they're of quite a different kind of construction. And then you've got a series of sets of screws and these little rubber spacers. And the spacers will act kind of like how the springs acted on the previous pickups, and it'll help you to adjust the levels of the pickups. If you want them higher, you just loosen the screws. If you want them lower, you tighten the screws, and those rubbers act like a spacer that's adjustable. And what you'll notice is on each of these pickups, not only are they better construction, they've got more winds on the coils of the pickups, but then they also have the same lead colors. So on the bridge pickup, we have a yellow and a black, and on the neck pickup, we have a white and a black. And basically those wires will go back to where the original wires went from the original set of pickups. So first up, you want to fasten the bridge pickup to the bridge plate, and that was a bit funny to do because the copper plate was coming a bit loose. It was being pushed off by one of the screws, so I had to make sure the alignment of the screws were very straight. And once that's all fastened into the bridge plate, you're ready to feed those wires in through the body of the guitar and over towards the pickup selector and volume dials. And then all I had to do was re-solder the yellow wire back to where they were before on the same tab. And what I did here was kind of hook it over so it would hook around the original tab spot, and then it would be easier to solder it in place. And then I just lined up the black wire for when I solder it later. And then it's just doing the same for the neck pickup, feeding the wires back through the body of the guitar over towards the pickup selector switch and volume dials. And then we just have to fasten the neck pickup using the screws and rubber spacers again back onto the body of the guitar. And I used the pick guard to just double check the height that I set for the neck pickup as well, just to make sure it wasn't going to be too high in comparison to the fretboard and the pickup. It was just as a sort of reference point. And then once the height of the neck pickup was good to go, I did the same with the white wire, just attaching it back to the right tab on the pickup selector, and did the same thing again, just kind of made it into like a bit of a hook shape so it held itself in place while I was going to solder it. And then all that's left is to solder all the wires. So here I'm soldering the white wire, and the white and yellow wires, there's a nice dollop of solder already there. So you just need a big dollop of solder on your iron, and then just as you solder them, maybe hold the wire in place so it doesn't come out and off the tab. And it's the same for the yellow wire, just nice dollop of solder and make sure all the wire stays in place and it's a clean join. And then with the black wires that are being soldered to the pot, there's the same deal, just that big dollop of solder with all the wires on it. So just want a big dollop of solder on your soldering iron to make that melt nice and clean, and then just grab the wires and join them back onto that pot. And it doesn't really need to be done with too much finesse, like you want a clean solder join, but this isn't the most complicated thing in the world. You can see here, while I've got the iron hot, I'm just adding that second lead straight on top of it just to get it to melt in nice and easy. And then once that's done, you've just got to put all the plates back on. So here I'm just putting the pickup selector plate back in and carefully pushing those wires down and fastening that to the body of the guitar. Then we need to just put the pickup guard back on and it's basically all done. So then I just gave the body a nice polish and clean to make it look like a new guitar, which was just a bit of, bit of fun and a bit of beautifying the guitar. And then just a new set of strings as well to make sure that we've got a fresh pair of strings for when we start recording. And by this point, I'd obviously found my string winder, which I couldn't find earlier in this build. So I did have one. It was just a process of finding it.
Okay, so it's been a couple of weeks since that last build video, and I've had a bit of time to not just shave off the beard that was happening there, but also I've had time to test out these new pickups and the telly with my standard amp setup, which is my go-to Vox MV50 running through my Marshall combo. And I can tell you now, the sound that I'm getting from these new pickups is pretty impressive. It's taken the sound of the telly, which I initially perceived to be okay, but maybe a bit hollow sounding, and with the new pickups installed, I'm getting a much fuller, chimier mid-range and more harmonics and more sustain, and it just sounds richer harmonically. That's probably the best way I can describe it. But don't just take my word for it. What I'll do is play a track for you right now that I've been working on. I'll play the full instrumental first, and then I'll play just the guitars soloed, and let me know in those comment sections what you think. So as you can hear, the guitar sounds quite rich. It sounds much more like an expensive guitar. I was literally just running the Telecaster straight into my MV50. There's no distortion pedals. It was just cranked all the way up gain-wise, and that's the tone of the pickups and that amp. And I think it sounds pretty good. It's definitely giving that cheap Telecaster a much more professional, full and polished sound. And I should also add, there's no EQ or any processing on these guitars at all. It's just an SM57 going into a Neve style 500 series preamp. But yeah, it's a pretty simple build. I think it's very worthwhile as a project. It's really easy to change these pickups out and put in some new ones. It's quite cheap. It was only about $100 or so to get this new set of pickups, but I can say for sure that the new pickups are a definite improvement over the stock ones that you get with these cheap guitars. So if you're looking to take a cheap guitar that might only cost a couple of $100 and then upgrade it for another $100 and end up with something that is getting towards the quality of a studio guitar, this might be something that you want to have a look at. If you've got any questions about the build, make sure you hit me up in the comment section down below. It's really simple as a project, and I had a lot of fun doing it. In the next video, I'm actually going to do a shootout of my current Telecaster with the upgraded pickups and compare that to the original Affinity Telecaster pickups, and that way we can compare exactly how different they sound. So I'll catch you in the next video. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm Mitch from the DIYRecordingstudio.com. I'll catch you soon.